What's up, everybody? This is the bonus audio this week. It's Blade Daily, and I am here with someone that you didn't know and that I didn't know until right now. And his name is Zerpie. Zerpie, what up?
What's up, Blade? Thank you so much for having me on. I just want to say before we even get into anything, I'm such a fan of the podcast. That's why I reached out to you, just to let you know that, like, man, I love it. I love the community that's come together on Threads. And I feel like the podcast is kind of the center of that whole community. So I just want to say thank you to you and Joshi G for putting this out.
It's absolutely my pleasure. I paid you to say that, and I will pay. I'm going to tip you. I'm going to add a little to
put a direct deposit, please.
Yeah, just direct deposit,
Gotcha.
Just right into the account. But no, thank you very much. And we are so. It was kind of crazy, to have this podcast as just something that we just conspired publicly, kind of to do, and then we just did it, and it's been an absolute blast. You have a history with podcasting yourself, and not only do we have that in common, but we are both AEW fans. We are both wrestling fans, and we are both wrestling toy fans.
Yes, we have been bitten by the bug.
Oh my God. It is a really poisonous bug, the wrestling. Holy shit.
Oh, it costs a lot of money too.
It really does. I remember, so I started collecting during the pandemic. So it was like everybody had a little extra scratch. We all had
we had a lot of time in our hands.
$1,200 richer. Give me that government money. And I remember just randomly being on Amazon one day and saw the Bret Hart Ultimate that came out with the Shinsuke Nakamura Ultimate.
Yes.
And I bought both of them because I love both of those guys. So, and that literally kicked off. I'm now in year 4 of utter insanity, madness, I say.
Oh, definitely, me too.
What got you into collecting? When did you start?
Well, I mean, man, if I've always loved action figures. As a kid, that was my favorite toy, action figures.
Oh, yeah.
Back then, it was real Ghostbusters, Ninja Turtles, Batman '89. That was my jam.
Me too.
But I never really got into wrestling until like probably end of middle school, beginning of high school. Nintendo 64, the game WCW versus NWO World Tour came out. And then that got me obsessed with wrestling because I was playing that and I was like, I know all the wrestlers and stuff. I kind of watched wrestling on and off. But then when I saw Hulk Hogan as a bad guy, I was like, what the hell is going on?
Yep.
And so I started tuning in and then I was obsessed. And then right around the corner from that was Toy Biz got the license for WCW. And they started releasing the first, it was the Smash and Slam figures. And I got that whole first series. I remember being at Walmart and seeing the Macho Man Randy Savage Wolfpack figure. And I was like, this is the coolest thing ever. I remember the smell of it when I opened it up. I brought it home, opened it up. Like, that is just ingrained. And then I just collected those for a long time. And they had like different spin-off series and everything. And then I remember just digging them up when like years later when like my parents were just throwing out old crap from my old stuff that they just still had at their house. And she just like filled up a garbage bag of like all these action figures. She's like, come get these.
Yep.
And I got them and it had all my wrestling figures. And then so I remember like taking them home and setting them up and like posing them as like a whole little scene. I had the ring and everything. And I was like, man, I loved it. And I got rid of those. Like I traded all those for like an Xbox or something. and then it wasn't until the pandemic. Again, I saw, it was right before the pandemic, actually. I was at Target and I saw a Finn Balor Elite. And I was like, oh man, I kind of want that. And I had just kind of started checking out the Major Wrestling Figure podcast with Matt Cardona and Brian Myers.
Yep.
And that kind of like watching them talk about figures and show off figures, I was like, man, those figures now look so cool. And that the rest is history.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's unfucking believable how far these things have come. So I started collecting figures. It was right at the tail end of the LJN rubber, big rubber dudes.
Yep.
And then when they put out the Hasbro, smaller figures, I had entire sets of those. And I had Bret Hart, oh my God, I had so many of them. Collected those for a few years, kind of got out of it before they stopped producing them. I was just turned 13 or 14 and was I had a life all of a sudden. And it was totally out of the toy game. And then I remember I was with my a relative's kid at a toy store, and I happened past these, Mattel Elites. And I could not believe how far toys had come since the 90s. Cause those WWF, bone crunching, whatever, they look
BCAs.
They look great. Those are, they didn't get Stone Cold Steve Austin right.
Oh,
you know what I mean?
They still had the white star on the boots and everything. It's just it's good enough. That's the thing. People who will and look, Mattel, they're not batting a perfect game. Every now and then there's something where it's this isn't that great. But you kids these days, you don't understand the crap we had to settle for back then.
Holy shit.
Now it is so good.
Yeah. I mean, you go and look at those Jax figures, which at the time were probably incredible.
Yeah.
They look like shit compared to the Elites, a lot of them, or they're not scaled anyway,
Right. Yeah. Later when they did the Titantron figures and everything, Jax, where there was no scale at all.
Right.
It's Rey Mysterio is the same height as Big Show.
Right.
And it's this doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I just saw some of those at a store the other day at a retro emporium that we have around here. And Jeff Hardy is the exact same height as Big Show, I think.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's no scale at all. But obviously they were great for their own time. And then they obviously built, Mattel took it to this whole next level. And then the real worst thing that could have possibly happened finally happened. And that's when Jazzwares got the AEW license. And a total fanboy, I was buying the complete unrivaled set every time a new one came out for a couple years there.
I remember at the beginning of the pandemic when the first series came out.
Right.
I had, unfortunately, during the pandemic, I lost my job. I was laid off. I was as soon as those AEW figures came out, I was I can't spend money, but I want those really bad. And then at the same time, too, that I remember being at Walmart and they had the Mattel. I think it was Mattel. I can't remember who makes that. Actually, it could have been Hasbro. Someone made the Ghostbusters figures based on the movie. And I was oh, they have a whole set here. Well, I have to be responsible. So I didn't buy those.
Exactly.
So I had to wait. I think as soon as I got a job, I was all right, Jazzwares, here's my money.
Yeah, that first set too. It's just, I was so excited. You get them. They look like they're a little sick. All of them. They're very pale.
Oh yeah. That first line where they had to re-release them.
They re-released them with darker skin tones, but yes. I never got that second set. I'm I have to buy another set to get.
Yeah.
No,
it's I feel cheated.
I see what you did there, Padower. I see what you did.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've been buying those AEW figures, and I saw your Instagram profile forever ago, and you are quite a prolific wrestling figure photographer.
Well, thank you.
When did you start doing that?
Oh man, so after a while of collecting them, and it was so funny because I told my friend, I go, I started buying a couple of wrestling figures and I only want to collect, a handful of guys that I like, my favorite guys. And then I was I know me because every time I start collecting something, I get bit by that bug. It was retro video games for a while. It was comic books for a while. And then I was I know this is going to happen. And I started buying all those. And then eventually I was I started because it's in my interest. I'm following other, platforms with, figure photography or something, or just anything about action figures. And I see a lot of this figure photography. And I'm like, that looks fun. And I've always kind of wanted to try photography, but I'm like, okay, if I buy a camera, a DSLR, what am I going to shoot with it? Well, am I just going to walk around like I guess I could go to the park and just take pictures of flowers, but I'm like, that's not that fun. And then I saw the figure photography and I was like, there we go. I could do that. And then I feel like I'm doing something with these action figures that I'm buying. Because, you buy them and then you put them up on your shelf and you admire them. But I'm like, I'm a big kid. I kind of want to play with them.
Yeah, of course.
So
yeah.
It's an excuse to play with your action figures. and so I didn't know what I was doing. I bought an affordable DSLR that I read up on, and people are like, this is good for beginners if you don't really know what you're doing. And it came with like 2 lenses. So I was like, oh, this is awesome. And then I just started shooting and I didn't know what I was doing. If you scroll back far enough in my Instagram, man, you see how far I've come, because I didn't know what the hell I was doing. The lighting was terrible. I didn't know how to, use the right f-stops on the camera and everything. The exposure was all wrong, but eventually just watching what other people were doing, it helped me learn. And what I love about the figure photography community on Instagram is so many of them want to just help you out. They're happy to just answer questions for you, or just what I loved is just people posting behind the scenes of them setting up shots. And you're like, oh, that's how they do the lighting. It's better to light kind of from the sides and behind, and then a little light from the front. Okay, I got it. And then you just kind of just develop from there. And it's been fun. Again, I still don't really know what I'm doing, but I'm just getting better as I go. And people seem to like it, so that's fun.
I love it. I love what you're doing. I think, it's so fun. You guys got to go to Zerpie's Instagram. It's Zerpie_M as in Mary D. Zerpie_MD. Go give him a follow over there. There's amazing stuff. Famous wrestling moments. He had a tribute to Sid.
Yeah.
I don't know about you. This Sid dying really hit me weird.
Yeah, dude.
Because
he's one of those guys that we just grew up watching,
Absolutely. Well, and a guy, I was saying this with Joshi G the other day, is like wrestling is kind of shaped by the old timers of that day, right? Is like, so Sid coming up, people were like, he sucks, he can't wrestle, blah, 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 blah. But the people who grew up with Sid are like, he fucking ruled. He was fucking awesome.
He's just one of the best, like, big men. And he's one of those guys where it's like, there's nothing else, like, just looking at him, like, there's nothing else he could have been. He was born to be a wrestler. Like, you look at that and like, that's a wrestler.
Absolutely. No, and he wasn't, like, what he had went so far beyond skill. It was like, he was intense, believably intense. Like, those promos could be terrifying. And he was gigantic, but he was like cut like a bodybuilder. I mean, he just had it all. And sometimes you don't need to be, the best grappler in the world, because he looked like he could believably kill whoever he was in there with. And anyway, you had a great pic of him with Mankind. And I think you said it was from a particular Raw. Is that correct?
Yeah. I was going back and watching some of his stuff. And that was one of the matches that I pulled up, was him versus Mankind on Raw in '97.
Nice.
And it's like, oh man, this was just, it was just a great little Raw match. It was perfect. And man, and it's so funny how he would just disappear after a couple years. He'd be active for a couple years and then leave, probably go play softball for a while, and then come back somewhere else and wrestle for a couple years.
That was the thing. That was another thing he always got like harped on about, I even saw in PWI when it was like a strictly kayfabe magazine, like they would make little jokes about him playing softball, and I had no idea what they were talking about. And as I've gotten older, I'm like, dude, this guy totally lived on his own terms. He looked at wrestling like it was just a job to him. It wasn't like his passion in life. Softball was his passion in life. And he got to see his kids grow up. You know what I mean? Like, he seemed like actually like kind of a cool guy. And when you're 6'8" or 6'9", and
you can kind of do whatever you want.
Unspeakable charisma of this man.
Yeah.
You know, I guess you can do what you want. Yeah. So
absolutely.
I did notice you also have that Sabu figure. I have it as well. That was endlessly delayed.
Oh my God. Yeah. I would forget about it from time to time. I'm like, oh yeah, I did order that. I wonder when it's going to come out.
I ordered it and it moved twice. So I had to change my address with them twice to make sure they shipped it to the right place. But I got 2 of them. It's a decent figure. You know, it's obviously from folks who don't make a lot of these types of figures, but it is cool to have that.
It's just nice to add to my ECW row on my shelf.
Exactly. I have an ECW shelf, and you know, I got both those Sandmans that they put out, you know, and I got an RV, you know, the young RVD from Walmart that they just did a while back, and
I got the ringside exclusive Cactus Jack and the ECW shirt.
Me too. Yep.
Good one.
I got the Funker.
Funk, yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
But do you have this man in your collection?
Not yet.
Dark Daddy.
The Dark Daddy. That is right. That's a Fanatico, right? That's
yes. Boss Fight Studios. These things are great. They're kind of I guess their basics line, like Mattel does, but better. These are way better than basics. So much so that like I can't wait till. I mean, I don't know if they even have license to do this anymore. This is actually technically a Black Taurus or whatever.
Right, Black Taurus, yeah.
But so I don't know if they had a license to make like the more elite version of it. But I know, I think they're gonna do, because they did a Fantastico's version of Ultimo Dragon, which looks great, and I know they're gonna do like a more elite version of that as well. But for basics, like these are great.
Yeah, I'm stoked. I have the Phoenix, Penta, I have Taya Valkyrie, I have Hoovy that they made, the Fanaticos did. I think that was the first set, and then it's like Black Taurus, Ultimo Dragon. They're cool figures. I really like them. But I saw that Black Taurus before he, like somewhere around the time he showed up as Mordos, and I was like, oh shit. Like, I gotta
immediately
get that.
I ordered him. I was like, I need that for my AEW shelf now.
Yeah, no, man. Just a minute on Mordos, man. What an incredible wrestler. I mean, just
he's blowing up. I'm glad that people are like really getting on board.
Yes.
With both him and the Outrunners. They're just the fans are really rallying behind these guys, and I hope AEW and Tony Khan are noticing and just like, okay, we need to push these guys.
Well, as what I've heard is that the Outrunners are selling a lot of merch, and so they're moving a lot of merch. And I mean, you've seen like with Mordos as well, like they're just all of a sudden they're just on the shows a lot.
Yeah,
and
he's on like every show.
I know,
every week. Like
I know.
First is kind of just Collision, then he's showing up on Dynamite every week. Now I'm like, okay, we're really picking up some steam here.
Sporadically on Rampage, just whatever. And no, it's fantastic because the crowds respond to him in such an organic way. It was cool to see our Threads community, all of us kind of freak out about him at the same time. And, we've created this lore, I came up with Dark Daddy and all that shit. But it's awesome to just see him get his due from everybody all at once.
Definitely.
Hologram is also a really interesting wrestler, just somebody who I think they got to work on that costume of his just a little bit, because he can be super toyetic, as Cardona would say.
And I remember when they first introduced him, I remember there's some rumors or whatever from behind the scenes that, there's going to be some really special effects aspects to him and everything. And I'm like, okay, cool. When are they going to introduce that?
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's just, he comes out and there's
an H
his chest
that glows on his chest.
Is that it?
Yeah.
But I hope they kind of do more with that, because that seems like that was kind of Tony Khan's pet project.
It does. So. And I was not familiar with Aramis, who he was. That's who he was in AAA.
Yeah, I had to look that up when he debuted. I'm like, okay, who is this guy?
Yeah. I went and watched some YouTube videos and was like, whoa, okay, all right.
Yeah.
But him and Taurus, when they're Mordos, when they're in the ring together, is unbelievable.
Oh yes.
And
I mean, last night seeing that match with Ricochet, holy crap!
Oh my god. Oh, I mean, I'm just stoked. Mordos is going to end up getting a big push because, like, I mean, he already kind of is. He's already on every show pretty much,
Yes.
and I think he's on more than anyone right now. And he's kind of that utility player that you put in with to have a great match when you need one. And
you need a third in a trios match. Here you go. You got him.
Yep. Right. He's wrestling in a trios match on Collision this week. It's like, Jesus Christ, this guy is just, I love that they've talked about him being a beast for hire. And that, I loved when Matt Taven said, something about the beast has never known the value of $1. Like, said something like that. But no, it's just great stuff. It's great stuff. So you kind of became a wrestling fan through the video games, through the, yes. I mean, because those video games on the Super Nintendo or on the 64 were holy shit. That was groundbreaking.
Yeah, because that got me into WCW, and then I remember the next year, Revenge came out like the week of my birthday.
Wow.
And I was just like, that's all I want. I want that. And I remember like my mom she must have like on her lunch break from work went and picked it up and then brought it home. And I remember I got home from school and it was waiting for me on the counter.
Yeah.
And I was just like, yes. And I just immediately ran upstairs, plugged that in. And that is still like one of my favorite wrestling games still.
Oh,
and I know No Mercy is a better game because it came out 2 games later and it's improvements. But I'm like, but that WCW game, like, oh, that's 1998 right there. It
is. And it was, everybody had that game and it didn't matter if you were a wrestling fan or not. I mean, what was so crazy about it was I think it's really hard for people even now who are younger. Like I'm in my 40s, so like that's the only time as a wrestling fan. I've been watching wrestling since 1989. Okay. And that's the only time I can ever think of where even people who didn't know shit about wrestling would sit down and watch wrestling.
Oh yeah.
Or they would play that game and everybody knew that game. And even if you didn't watch wrestling, you might have had that game.
And it was so easy to pick up because it wasn't button combinations like wrestling games before that. It was just, it was the grapple system, a grapple system that they still use in video games today, the 2K games and Fight Forever. They use that. And there's even more games that are being worked on right now that are coming out that are kind of modeled after that Aki grapple style.
How many times did you use Aki Man?
Oh my God. Yeah.
Yeah.
Aki Man, THQ Man. Like, yeah. Was he one of the guys? Because I always have to look it up because they had the analogs for the Japanese wrestlers.
Right.
So it's just their movesets. I don't know. Did he have someone's particular moveset?
I don't know. I don't know if he did or not. And that was really common with wrestling games. A lot of different wrestling games.
Yeah.
I remember there had been a game before that where a guy was so obviously modeled after Sabu. And I was like, and he looked like him in everything.
I've got a couple of arcade arcade machines behind me that I've modded with Raspberry Pi. So I just loaded all games on there.
Nice.
And there's so many wrestling games that are non-licensed. Like I got the WWF wrestling games on here, but there's non-licensed wrestling games where just every one of them has a Hulk Hogan type and a Macho Man type.
Yep.
And it's like, okay, yeah. So everyone's just going to be like, this is what a wrestler looks like.
Yep.
And of course, everyone has blonde hair and a biker mustache.
Of course. No, and that's the thing, I think when you get into like collectibles and you get into like hobbies, right? Like wrestling is like Coca-Cola in the sense of, Coca-Cola is one brand, and I suppose you could just be a WWE or a AEW or whatever if you wanted to be. I would probably skew the hardest towards AEW, but I collect a lot of different stuff. Wrestling is so inherently lends itself to collecting, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Like, there's toys, there's
cards,
there's cards, there's autographs, there's all this shit you can collect, post, just whatever you want. And wrestling is just one of those things. It is a sickness, kind of. It gets inside of you.
right?
And the deeper you go, you kind of can't ever find your way out after a certain point. And what I think is so important is folks like ourselves, right? Like, as I've continued along, I've had times where like I got way too into like reading dirt sheets and way too into like analyzing wrestling and being around people and wanting on some level to kind of prove that I was as smart as the people I was interacting with. And I had to ask myself, like, is this fun though? Am I enjoying myself? And collecting is one of those ways where it's like, it's not an intellectual exercise, right? It's just fun. It's just, it reminds you of how like fucking visceral candy this shit really is, and it's real life superheroes. It's real life comic book characters,
and that's what's so great about the collecting the figures is it is very much like superheroes. It's that toyetic, that word again, where you walk down the aisle and you see the wrestling figures there and it's like, oh my God, look at this character. If you're not familiar with wrestling, like it's so easy to fall into that. You're like, whoa, like look at any Rey Mysterio action figure.
I know.
The most toyetic ever.
Yep.
And just like, oh man, okay, I need to buy this. I did not need a new Rey Mysterio action figure, but I was at Walmart recently and they had like, oh, this one has the LWO shirt. I got to get this one.
Yeah. With Ray, he's one of those guys that I've sworn off like a bunch of different times where I'm like, okay, I got plenty of Ray Mysterio.
Exactly.
I don't need any more Ray. And
that's also like, how I am with Kenny Omega. Yeah.
Oh my God. Me and Kenny. So me and Kenny, me and Bret Hart, me and Eddie Guerrero. They haven't released like a ton of Eddie, but I've got all the RVDs they've released since he they started making figures for him again.
Right.
So like some of my shelves are like a faction or whatever, and then I'm like, I have enough Kennys to just make a shelf.
Yeah,
like I don't. And it's because he's so cool looking. You know what I mean? Kenny just looks cool as hell. And so, and Brett's looks were cool. And, there's other people that I have a lot of that I didn't even mean to get a lot of, like Shawn Michaels. You kind of almost accidentally get a bunch of Shawn Michaels stuff,
Those guys are just kind of always going to be under contract and they're just going to make them forever. It's funny with now that Hulk Hogan got back in the good graces of WWE and they put it back under contract. It's just been every month, here's a new Hulk Hogan figure.
It's ridiculous.
Because hurry up, get him out now before he says something stupid again.
Yeah, no, and he already has. I mean, several times over the last month. And what I do find hilarious is they put out that Ultimate Stone Cold like a year or two ago. That's the only one I got. That's the only one I need.
That's all you need. It is the quintessential Stone Cold. That's all you need.
Comes with the world title. He's got the necklace. He's got the vest. He's got
the
a
knee
few
brace,
heads.
Everything. He's got the vest.
Got the knee brace. Yeah.
Perfect.
You don't need it anymore. Like that's
because this guy never really changed his look anyway.
No, he never did.
Like, all right, great. One and done.
Yeah. And I remember they released one more Elite where he had like gold lettering on his vest or something. Yeah. And it's like, I don't care. I don't care. I have a couple rocks. I have the Nation of Domination rock. And then I have the Ultimate rock that they just re-released.
That one, it hurt me so bad because I missed out on that when they first released that Ultimate Edition. I had just started collecting right after it ended its run.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh man, I missed out on that. And I just, for the longest time, I'm like, man, I really want that Ultimate rock.
Yep.
And then I went on eBay and I kept looking at them and man, it was one of the most expensive Ultimate Editions. So finally I found one just out of box, already loose. It was complete but loose, and I dropped a lot of money on it.
Yep.
Got it, and I was like, finally have my collection. And I think like within the same week, they announced the next one, the one where he was he came up with a tracksuit and everything.
Yep.
And I was like, it's the same figure, just with the blue on the trunks.
Yep.
Oh my God. And then I bought that. And then they re-released the original one with the butterfly joints and everything. I was like, I'm never going to buy. And well, that's what I do like about Mattel right now is they are re-releasing a lot of the old figures. So if you're just now getting into it and you missed out on a lot of these guys, they're re-releasing them. So I'm like, okay, I don't need to go buy the old ones. And they're better now because now you have the changeable hands and usually heads and everything.
Oh yeah. No, and what I like, you know, I am not somebody who collects for value generally.
Yeah.
Like I have a few figures that are in the
Let
box.
them breathe.
Yeah, exactly. Like I buy them to set them up and look at them. It was really funny. I had a partner who was like, what do you do with them? Do you just like come in here and just look at them? And I'm like, yeah,
absolutely.
I just walk in and I go, and then like maybe like I'll move one figure's hand just slightly and then I'll leave the room. But that's what they're there for. Yeah. It's like going in and admiring art. It's like I have a fine art museum in a room in my home, and it's just wrestling figures.
This is full of the things I love.
Yeah, exactly. It's so amazing. It's so amazing. And to the folks listening to this, I will be doing a little guided tour of that room very soon.
Oh, I can't wait to see that.
Yeah. It's nowhere near as cool as your photography, but I got a lot of figures to show off. I even have those Super 7 New Japan figures.
Oh yeah, I got a few of those.
Yeah. Oh, those. I actually thought those got kind of a bad rap. That second set of them, just people really turned hard against it, and then they stopped making them, which was a bummer.
Yeah.
I mean, were they as like detailed as like the elites and stuff? No, but like.
It was cool. I got the Okada and the Osprey and like
I have Ishii.
It's cool just to have that. Ishii was the one I didn't get, and now like someone even called me out because I just posted the conglomeration, and someone's like, "Oh, you don't have Ishii," and I was like, "I know, I missed out on Ishii," and I've been looking at eBay, and I'm like, "Oh, I can't drop that much money on that."
I know.
I love Ishii.
You know those figures are going to be hella expensive.
Yeah.
But I had to have like a Tanahashi figure. I'm like, dude,
definitely. Yep.
Like
ace.
I gotta do this. Well, Zerpie, you and I could literally talk forever. And and this is just the first of many times that we will talk. But I'm so glad that you were willing to come on and talk, just totally nerd out about wrestling toys.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, man. I could talk about wrestling all day, every day.
Absolutely.
And so, yes, we will do this again.
We will sit back down and we will mark out some more very, very soon. Make sure you go check out Zerpie on Instagram. It's ZERPIE_M as in Mary D. Zerpie_MD for some really, really awesome fig photography. You got AEW figures in there. You've got AAA figures in there. You've got current WWE stuff going on, and you have the Bret Hart on the Nitro set, which I do not have.
The Nitro set, I kind of just I pieced together myself. I made that myself.
Wow.
Yeah, different model kits and everything, and then I had a friend 3D print the WCW letters for the sides and just painted everything up. And
holy shit!
Since I backed the Mattel Creations stage, but we didn't get enough backers, so
they didn't make it. Yeah, right.
Which part of me is kind of happy because I was like, that was gonna be a lot of money, and also like I'm running out of space.
Yes,
I'm like, oh my god, I got the new gen entrance and ring and everything, but yeah, and then Mattel and WWE keep releasing new rings. They have a new Raw ring coming out that comes with the Rhea Ripley Ultimate, and I'm like, I don't have the space. I don't have the space. 4 rings. I can't do this.
I have 2 AEW rings. I have the Rampage, the first Rampage ring, and I have the Double or Nothing ring, and that's all I have room for. Oh my God! See, we could. I
know. We're trying to wrap it up.
We could talk forever. But everybody, make sure you check out Zerpie on Instagram. Is there anywhere else you'd like people to check you out? Threads?
Instagram and Threads. Come say hi. Come hang out with us during AEW Dynamite and Rampage and Collision. We're always there, just live threading. And it's such a fun community.
It is so fun. Like the live experience of Dynamite and Rampage and Collision with all the sickos on Threads is the best. I love it. Sometimes I have to go back and rewatch the episodes because I missed some stuff just because I'm threading so much.
Just this morning, I went back. I had to watch the main event from Dynamite because I was like, I was distracted a little bit.
Yeah.
Plus, it was such a good match. I wanted to just watch it again.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. Bucks trios matches don't get there. And then you add Osprey and Takeshita. Oh my God. See, we're doing it again. All right.
Yep.
I'm Blade Daly. This is Zerpie, and we will catch your ass down the road. Pro wrestling forever.